Twin Cities Con returns to the Minneapolis Convention Center for their 5th year, November 7th through the 9th. Twin Cities Con is a celebration of comics, toys, TV, film, art, cosplay, games, and all things nerdy. There's nothing like Twin Cities Con. It's also a family-friendly event where you can meet your favorite celebrities, browse the vendor hall and artist alley for the coolest merch, watch celebrity Q&As, and even more. Twin Cities Con is bigger and better than before. Come see from the Star Wars universe Ahmad Best, Rosario Dawson and Giancarlo Esposito, Brendan Fraser, and the cast of The Mummy, WWE Wrestling Hall of Famers Sting and Mick Foley, and the voice actors from the hit Disney series Phineas and Ferb, plus more guests to be announced. 3 days of action-packed fun in the heart of Minneapolis at the Minneapolis Convention Center. Tickets start at $50. Kids' tickets are just $10 for the entire weekend. VIP tickets also available, including a 3-day weekend pass, plus some really cool VIP perks. More guests will be announced. Buy your tickets and get more information at TwinCitiesCon.com.
Are you one of thousands of individuals who know you have psychic abilities but don't know how to tap into your higher self? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who offers classes that can help you reach your goals. Refined Divine holds classes Monday and Thursday at her 2 locations and via Zoom. Classes consist of manifestation, learning psychic abilities, shadow work, and healing trauma. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
This is Psychic Medium Deb. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low of 58. Then Tuesday, patchy fog and sunshine with a high of 74. Don't miss Sasha Colby's Strip 2 Tour, an electrifying blend of dance, storytelling, and drag artistry at the Fillmore Minneapolis, October 9th. Tickets at thefillmoreminneapolis.com. Listen to The Gately Show and The Matt McNeil Show all week for your chances to win. Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us. I just want to quickly say this past weekend was pretty incredible. And one of the things that I ended up doing was I took part in the Refined Divine Holistic Expo on this last Saturday in Mankato, Minnesota. And, you know, I got to say, one of the reasons why this was so important to me, to be perfectly honest, was I started my broadcast career down at KEYC in Mankato, a television station. At the time that I was there, it was a CBS affiliate, and really, I hadn't been back since. I left there in 1995. I hadn't been back after that, and for no other reason that my path never really took me to Mankato. And you know, it's a real interesting study on how much a town grows in 30 years. And how much construction, how many new places are around. It just, it was really incredible. And I was actually really surprised with how a little bit emotional I got going back there. And I went over to KUIC, which is located on the aptly named Lookout Drive. And when I lived in Mankato, I used to live on Lookout Drive, and just to see how much that area had changed as well. That was used to be kind of the boonies of Mankato, North Mankato, and now it is just lush with all sorts of neighborhoods and stuff. It's really quite interesting. It's kind of like just stepping back in time, but also seeing time move on as well. Is pretty incredible. And then Sunday I was able to spend time with friends. We did an investigation over at the Grant House in Rush City, and I stayed the night there. And the Grant House is also just one of those beautiful historic hotels that if you want to go to a place that has just this wonderful feel, good energy. My room was just so inviting when I got there. It was a warm day yesterday, and there was, it was cool in there, and it was just very nice. And on the main floor, there is a restaurant called The Fort, which the food is outstanding. You got to check out the Grand House. They took very good care of us, and I was very happy that we spent time there. It was a great, fantastic experience there. Now, tonight we're going to talk about something here that happened on September 9th, and it was called Restoring Public Trust Through UAP Transparency and Whistleblower Protection. That's a bit of a mouthful there, isn't it? And the thing is, this is a congressional hearing. It was held by the House Oversight Committee's Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets. Once again, that was on September 9th, and it was in the Capitol building. And, obviously something like this we want to talk about. We want to kind of go through it a little bit and just kind of give our impression. Now, if you had watched this on September 9th, I invite you, if you're watching us on Facebook over on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun or over on Get Haunted, please put your impressions in the comments or any questions you have. I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to have the answers per se, but we'd love to know your thoughts. We'd love to know what you're doing, what your thoughts are on this. Now, joining me tonight is a good friend and someone who's been on the program a number of times, Michael J Worden. And Michael is a retired law enforcement officer and researcher, an award-winning author of historical true crimes. He is the author of 2 historical true crime books, the award-winning Lynched by a Mob, the 1892 lynching of Robert Lewis in Port Jervis. We talked about that. We on the show talking about that. That was published in 2022. And in 2013, The Murder of Richard Jennings, the true story of New York's first murder for hire. These are fantastic books. I would definitely recommend checking them out. But we're not really going to be talking about that tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about congressional hearings and whatnot. Michael, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Thank you, Greg. I'm always happy to be back here talking with you. And it's funny because I feel a connection to my fan base here out in the Hudson Valley, but also to so many people out your way that I've never even met, but yet always feels like I'm talking to home. So always happy.
You are always welcome here. Please consider this your home. I really like that. So we have this hearing that took place, like I said, September 9th. This one, I'm going to be honest, this one had kind of snuck up on me a little bit. Someone asked me about what I thought, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So that just goes to show, Michael, I'm really doing a good job on my end over here. So people who testified and witnesses, we had Jeffrey Nucatelli, Chief Alexandra Wiggins, we had George Knapp, we had Dylan Borland, we had George Spielberger, and I should probably back up here a little bit. Jeffrey is U.S. Air Force veteran. Chief Alexandra Wiggins is UAP witness, Navy operations. George Knapp, I think many have probably heard of George Knapp. He is a UAP journalist. Dylan Borland is U.S. Air Force veteran UAP witness, and Joel Spielberger is Senior Policy Counsel, Project on Government Oversight, a minority witness. So a couple things here that were talked about, Michael. The transparency and disclosure, whistleblower protection, safety and national security, data and evidence quality. One of the things that I find on here that we really keep talking about is, number one, protection of whistleblowers, which is very important. And I'm coming from a point. I'm coming from a place that if we don't protect whistleblowers when it comes to UAP, they're not going to feel that they are comfortable to be able to share anything or be able to speak out. But you and I kind of talked a little bit before the start of the program. For folks, Michael is a retired law enforcement officer. He's been privy to many things over the years. When it comes to leaking out information, just in general, what's your stance on that? Just what based on that, you have to take oaths, you have to make promises, and people are whistleblowing what is, very much government secrets and government, government plans. What are your thoughts on whistleblowing in this case?
So I'm going to walk a very fine line here, as maybe a lot of people don't know yet. I actually unretired. Well, I came out of retirement partially as now a deputy police chief.
Oh,
So yeah, I kind of I can't stay retired, Greg. I don't know what my problem is.
no, every time you get out, they pull you back in. I mean, that's clearly
So
what's going on here.
so I do walk a slight fine line with ethics and credibility and issues. But I think there was a quote from that I pulled when I was looking through some of the transcripts over this weekend, and it was a quote from Joseph Spielberger, who, as you mentioned, was one of the minority witness. And I thought his quote was good: as whistleblowers are a crucial first line of defense against wrongdoing. Ultimately, blowing the whistle comes at great personal risk. Whistleblowers risk losing their jobs, careers, livelihoods, and reputations. And I'm sworn, obviously, as a law enforcement officer to be truthful, to safeguard certain secrets. I'm required, depending on the type of investigation, for example, not to provide names of sex assault victims, identified juvenile suspects by names. The things that I'm bound by at my level are certainly much lower than people in the military, people with high ranking classifications. So the ramifications, the more you go up, the more the ramifications become more serious, I think. And it's a very difficult moral dilemma. And I don't know that it's easy for anybody on the outside to put themselves in their shoes until they're in that position. And I got a lot of respect for anybody that comes out and believes what they're doing is the right thing by whistleblowing. Because it's got to be hard.
It does. And I know, and I think you and I are kind of, and this is why it's interesting, you and I are going down different tracks here a little bit, because you're right. The idea of whistleblowing when there is wrongdoing, absolutely, there needs to be some sort of protection for them and for us, actually, as well. I guess I'm thinking, and folks, please don't get me wrong. Please don't think that I'm trying to say that the government should keep all UFO and UAP, a secret from us. But, the idea is that, I wonder what what are they seeing as the wrongdoing here? Is it just the fact that we are keeping this from the public? That is wrong. We need to be more transparent about what is happening and what we, as working in the U.S. government, are seeing. Is that, am I do you think I'm closer with that?
I mean, that's got to be it, because I don't know what the other reason to be coming forward is, unless there's a much deeper layer to this that even the whistleblowers aren't really communicating through these hearings. And these hearings are very well controlled. They're not free for alls. And I'm going to suspect, for the most part, that when they call a witness, they pretty much know what they're going to testify to. Any good lawyer wouldn't call a witness without knowing what he or she's going to testify to. And I'm sure it's not much different at the congressional level, especially when you're talking about the UAP subject, which has been, a big buzzword since a year or two ago, when they held the really big hearings. And all of a sudden the government's acknowledging there's things in the sky that they can't explain. I will tell you, I had a call from a friend over the weekend, because I hadn't really seen these when they were on, much like you. They kind of,
right.
Hey, when did I miss this? Yeah. And, I had started watching them. I was reading quotes, and a friend called who's in the UFOs and was like, what do you think about this? And I said, well, it's interesting, the whistleblower issue. And they're like, they had an interesting take on it. They said, it's more like dog whistling. And I asked, what do you mean by dog whistling?
Yeah.
So, their opinion was, this is all part of the same government cover-up. These are just dog whistles to make everybody think there's more transparency being offered than there really is. The old, hey, look, there's Elvis, look over there.
Yes.
Just don't look over here.
Yeah.
So I hadn't looked at it like that. I was trying to be a little more optimistic. Perhaps a lifetime spent in government employee should have been a little less so. But, so I don't know. Are these whistleblowers, or are they dog whistleblowers,
It's so interesting that you say that, because that is one of the things that always in the back of my mind as well. And I don't know, I've had Erica Lukes on the program, and she's been on Ancient Mysteries and other programs, but her specialty is UFOs and UAPs. And I remember bringing her on the very day that the first hearings took place. I think it was like July 12th or the week after in 2023. And I'm like, what do you think of these? Thinking that she's going to be like, this is a real step forward. This is that. She's like, it's a bunch of BS. She I think she's firmly on the dog whistle blower side of it. Meanwhile, I was talking to people as well who were saying, here, in these testimonies, you have people who are confirming that there's bodies that were recovered, that there were actually ships that they could say that they had in them, and the person I was talking to is like, all that's been kind of like blown over. They didn't really talk about all that much, but it's been confirmed, and it's like, yeah, you're right. I mean, there is so much, and it's so hard because there's so many moving parts with this.
Yeah. And, again, I remember back when the first hearings, July of 23, this was like, I thought initially a big step forward. There was hearings in November last year. I started to feel like maybe we're being spoon-fed a little bit, but when a good friend who's been following UFOs his whole life says, this is a dog whistle. Like, basically, what's wrong with you for even thinking this is real? And I thought, I'm a pretty smart guy, man. Now I feel a little tricked here.
Well, and I was going to ask you, and this is kind of a sort of a very much a sort of not a trick question, but it may be a touchy one, because I find this a touchy one. Do you think, because I see like George Knapp on there, and George Knapp does a lot of stuff with another UFO researcher, Jeremy Corbin. And the word that other people have used about those two is that they weaponize the information about the whole idea of aliens. And do you think that having people, and feel free to tell me that you don't know enough about it or you don't want to answer or whatever, do you think that there's something about that where there are people trying to kind of weaponize and fearmonger us with some of this information as well?
Yeah, I don't know enough specifically about those two to say whether or not they are, but I think that's been an undercurrent in the entire UFO field for decades. You have sort of these different camps. You have those who they just want to get to the truth. They don't want to scare people. They don't want to minimize it, but they know something's going on, and they want to either prove it's government originated, it's extraterrestrial, it's ultra terrestrial, whatever the word you want to use is.
Yeah.
And then there's others who, this is a giant conspiracy. The government's hiding all this technology. There's aliens that are conspiring in the government. They've been working with us for decades. How do you think we got the bombs? And I think there is fear mongering, and fear mongering sells to some extent.
Yeah.
But it's been like that in the paranormal field in general. Look at demonologists. There are people that run around, every bump in the night's a demon. Every ghost is a demon.
What I think is even fair to say, without trying to be political about it and or talk about sides or anything, I think all sides, they use a threat of war, they use a threat of aggression, and maybe the naive side of me with this is like, okay, if you weaponize that part of it, trying to be like, well, if we don't know about it, we don't know what they can do to us, sort of thing. You might get, maybe that tries to force action to happen. But everything I've seen from, well, not necessarily George, but he's a part of it all, is just kind of like, just really, I guess it doesn't align with my personal views on UFOs and UAPs, and it doesn't need to. But I don't come at it as thinking that we should be frightened of any sort of alien interaction, I guess.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you on that. I don't necessarily believe it is something to be afraid of. Well, first of all, we don't even know what the scope of the issue is to have any fear. I mean,
right.
I suppose the fear of the unknown, it's like walking into a pitch black room and feeling your way for the light switch, worried that you're going to bump into someone that's not supposed to be there. But, I think realistically, we don't know what the true depth of the issue is. Are these aliens from another planet? Are they from another dimension, like someone like John Keel would have proposed, the ultra terrestrial type of idea? Is it all just mass hysteria? Is it government propaganda?
Right.
I think frightening people, telling people to be afraid of something that we really can't explain any details on with definitive 100%, stack of Bibles, you're not going to burst in the flames here. And
Yeah.
and I don't and I think that happens, like you mentioned, in politics, it happens in religion, it happens, and the internet has made it so much a part of every discussion today. Almost everything's got some element of fear mongering. And I agree with you. I don't fear the thought that there could be aliens amongst us. We're still here.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely. No, I'm 100% behind you on that. What I want to do, though, is let's go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, there are a couple questions that come to mind I want to ask Michael his opinion on. This is really interesting, kind of getting different perspectives on this. Folks, if you have questions, put it in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Folks, don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. And if you haven't done so yet, I would highly recommend doing one of those Minneapolis trolley tours. My goodness, there's so much to talk about with these folks. You get this wonderful tour around Minneapolis, and the stories that they have are stories, and I've lived in the Twin Cities my entire life, and the stories that they tell I've never heard before. And they don't just tell stories like someone once said this about this place. They have things that back up those stories, that back up those facts. And it's been a real pleasure to have gone on that tour a number of times. And if you haven't done so yet, we're getting into fall. It's going to be nice and cool. The actual trolley cars, they're either air conditioned or heated, whatever the weather gives. And the locations that they take you to are beautiful, but also the locations that they come from, that they start at, such as the 300 Clifton Mansion or the Pillsbury Mansion. They are incredible. Please check it out, MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com. We are talking with author Michael J Worden tonight. We are talking about this congressional hearing that took place September 9th about UAPs, also really focusing on with the whistleblowing aspect to it and protecting the whistleblowers. In fact, one of the things that was proposed during this this hearing was the UAP Whistleblower Protection Act, introduced by Representative Tim Burchett and Anna Paulina Luna. And the core aim is to provide stronger protection for federal personnel, including civilian employees, military contractors, intelligence community who disclose the use of federal taxpayer funds to evaluate or research UAP, which for those who, and I never can remember this, stands for unidentified anomalous phenomenon material. I miss the days of UFO. I'm just going to say that.
Can we just call them UFOs again for a while?
Honestly, I said it to Erica Lukes. I said I'm not going to call it a UAP, and she's like, "Well, you're going to be left behind, basically," and that's fair. I don't know. You and I both missed these hearings. Like I mean, you do a podcast about aliens, UFOs called UFO Headquarters, and it's still going, and folks need to go and check it out. I mean, you're up on this stuff generally. I try to be up on this stuff. Do you think the media is losing interest in this?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I go back to blaming the internet, and the internet's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Our attention spans have gotten shorter and shorter with whatever's in the media that's popular at the moment overshadows everything else. And our algorithms feed us the same things. I swear our phones listen. I'll talk about something with my wife, and then I'll have ads pop up on Instagram and Facebook for the very thing we talked about. So I think it's just the media. I think it's interesting when they think they can run with it, and when there's other things in the news and it's been quite the news cycle lately. Without getting political, it's been crazy, and I think there's just plenty of news out there, and this has sort of lost its luster. The same luster that it had 2 years ago when it was like, whoa, the government's talking about UAPs, the government.
Yeah.
Like, this is unprecedented. To now it's just like, oh, well, they're holding hearings on it, but it's not exciting enough.
And I suspect that has a lot to do with the name of it, basically saying it's about whistleblower protection. And, I have a feeling the fickle public is like, well, we're probably not going to learn anything new about that. We don't necessarily. I mean, it's maybe they don't necessarily not care about whistleblowers and their safety, but it's not as cool as like that first one in 2023 where they're showing the Tic Tac ship and all the stuff that people hadn't known before. One of the things I find very interesting about this, though, is like we're looking back in 2023, we're taking a look at this footage, right? But this footage goes way back further. And that's kind of how the military would work. You're not going to see anything that's going to be from a year or so beforehand. So it's like also like, what are we? Everyone is on a time delay basically, and wondering like what are we missing? What do we actually not know that even the people in the hearings probably know but can't say?
Yeah, and again, we talked earlier before the break about the whole dog whistling. It's the sleight of hand. Look over here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move the shells around, and you could follow my hand, but you're never gonna really know what's the real shell's hiding because you're never gonna figure it out. I'm gonna let you see this little bit, and I think that's what they're showing us is what they want us to see. So there's definitely a control of information, and when you read some of the stuff they want, they talk about national security, whistleblower protection. Does it open a can of worms where anybody that wants to just spill military secrets or national security secrets? I mean, ultimately, the reality is we do need to have national security like any other nation would need.
Yep.
I mean, we have it at the police level. We have things that we don't have to disclose to the public that we do or have. And believe me, it's nothing close to UAPs, So
are you dog whistling right now? I mean,
I am definitely, and I am not saying any of this under threat of alien abduction or any mysterious probings and stuff. So
right.
But I think too, I'm very skeptical because being in the Hudson Valley, we have Stewart Air Force Base here. which was once a hub for Project Blue Book.
Yeah.
And if anybody that's ever done any deep dive into the Project Blue Book, you can find the most credible witnesses, military pilots, aviation experts. People have just come back from flying fighters in World War II, Vietnam, Korea, to being told that what they saw was swamp gas, was Venus, was a reflection. And the way the government downplayed those witnesses.
Yeah.
And you read their stories, read their statements, and how credible they are. And at the very end, we don't believe that this person was being completely forthright.
Yeah.
But you trusted him enough to fly one of your bombers or your fighter jets.
Right.
But you don't think he could tell the difference between Venus and an unidentified flying object, or UAP.
Yeah. No.
So to me, it's just the government's never had a good track record with disclosure, and I don't see that just changing overnight.
It raises a couple really good points, and it is kind of like, is it just a new sort of tactic in public relations, in opposed to a completely new era for how they talk to us about it? I mean, like you said, and you brought up Roswell. You start out, I mean, could you imagine how life on Earth would be very different, I think, if that original report about what happened at Roswell stood, and that the government did not come in to try to dissuade and make everyone involved look like that they were mistaken about like alien material being a weather balloon. And if how the world would be different now if we were forthright with that the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, we can only imagine what was that, almost 80 years ago, 75 years ago now. I mean, it would have been a completely different world that we're in today. And you understand the government's perspective. I can at least look at it as a history major, looking back at the what was going on in the world at the time, why the government's being so hush-hush, but yet, claiming people don't know what a weather balloon is, that would clearly know what a weather balloon is.
Yeah.
So I think we've switched from that. We've gone from the days of calling people just, they don't know what they're looking at, to, we'll give them what they want to hear. We're going to trickle truth the information little by little. And we're never going to really come out and say specifics. We might say a little bit of a specific, but it's never going to be the whole picture. We're always just going to give you the little dots. And maybe if you look across the room and squint, you might see a picture. But when you get too close to it, all you're going to see is just a bunch of random looking dots that really don't add up to anything. And I think that's the cynical side of me at this point, I think.
Well, and is that there is one big part of all this that I have a problem with, and that is that I firmly believe that the government is working with alien intelligence. And I can't, it's not for me to say what that alien intelligence is, because it could be all sorts of different things. But I think that there has been a partnership of some kind for a long time. And this is where I always like to say, and I'd be curious if you agree with me on this, is that this is where you really see a difference between politics and government. Because government is going to be the one that is keeping, this is what's keeping, the country kind of moving the way that they want it to, because this is not a policy. This is a government a program or a government secret or whatever. That I think there's a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't know is going on, and I think this is one of them.
Yeah, that it reminds me of the details right now are not in front of me, so I know I'm not going to give a 100% accurate recollection of this. But when Eisenhower was president, and demanded to know what was being held with aliens, and they basically told him, he didn't have the clearance to know. And I think that was the story where he threatened to send the first army in, the big red one, and said that he would send them in to invade the base if they didn't show him. Now, again, take it for what it's worth, but you mentioned politics versus government.
Yeah.
The politics change. The president can change every 4 years or whatever, our Congress, all of our elected officials, but yet there's got to be a continuity that keeps all this other stuff in place. That's much bigger than all of us. It's bigger than the president.
Yep.
It's bigger than any individual person. The machinery, I guess.
Machinery is a great way of putting it, and that I'm not here to argue whether that's right or wrong either. You know, this is just a fact, and to me, this is just a fact of how things work. And the word you use, continuity, I think is absolutely spot on with that as well. And you know, folks, if you have a chance, check out some of my past episodes with Paul Blake Smith. Paul had written a book about President Nixon showing Jackie Gleason alien bodies.
I love that. I love that story so much.
Isn't that something? It's just absolutely, and you know, it's like, and part of me is like, of anyone who has a chance to see aliens, I'm happy it's Jackie Gleason. I just, you know, the great ones would see the, you know, it's just,
the whole thought of it just is funny, but you know, who knows? You know, it sounds absurd on its face, but then that's what also makes it so believable.
Well, and two, it's that whole thing about power. You know, when you are at a certain, I mean, the way that it all came down to is that Nixon needed money for the re-election campaign. Jackie Gleason, who's always there for a deal, and basically is like, I got money for your re-election, but I want to know a little bit more about aliens. You know, and it's just, you know what, you're in a position to do so, and Nixon was in a position to show. I actually have no problem believing this, quite frankly. I have no, and I think it was his wife. Well, I think it was his wife in the mid 80s, just before he died, who let that all slip.
I believe so. Yes.
And that's just one of those things that's like, okay. And he was so mad, but it's like, you know, that's good. I mean, that's, we need to know what's going on. It'd be interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, see, you know, it's like, you know, people like to brag over their brand new barbecue grills and stuff. If I was the president, I'm sure I'd be like, oh, come on, I got to show you something to my friends. I got you beat. I don't care about your barbecue grill. Wait till you see what we have, you know?
Right. Shows up and, you know, flies around in his little spaceship.
You couldn't, I wouldn't be able to contain that secret. They couldn't tell me. Because if they asked me in a public hearing, I would look like I was guilty written all over my face. No, there's no aliens. Really.
Absolutely. You know, and it's interesting because I'm going through like notes I had about the hearing. And it's interesting because it first of all, it was a very short hearing. It didn't last too long. But you know, there, apart from the whistleblowing, you know, we talked about that already. There isn't a ton more to it. No. You know, and it's but I mean, I hope that this helps. I was just looking real fast. Like you know, you pulled some quotes, I pulled some quotes. Jeffrey Nucitelli, Air Force veteran, UAP witness, what we saw changed our lives, the way we think about everything. It was incredibly profound. He described personal UAP encounters on duty, and he hears encounters, plural, on duty, and emphasized how witnessing something unexplainable had lasting effects both personally and professionally. And you got to think too, that's a really interesting sideline to that, Michael, is that whole idea of personally. And it's not about, I don't think that's about the whistleblower protection. It's what it does to you personally, I think.
And that's something, you know, in speaking with a lot of different people over the years with our other show about who've had encounters, sometimes going back to childhood, sometimes briefly as adults, and they always describe it as profoundly life-changing, either for the good or for the bad, but it's a profoundly deep change. It's not just the, you know, the abstract, we're not alone, we have proof. It's a change in their life, which I can't even fully explain it right now to you, how they can't fully explain it, but they're like, everything changed for me in that moment. You know, and we hear it over and over again from witnesses and people who've had very close encounters, without using that word. to jump onto things, but definitely.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
all true. Michael, why don't we go ahead? Let's take our next break here. When we come back, we're going to continue talking about this. I want to talk about your podcast. Folks, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. This is very interesting, and I think it's worth talking about the UAP Congressional Hearings. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We are going to have on Dave Woodruff. Dave is the husband of Refined Divine Deb, and we are going to be talking with him. We have Deb on occasionally talking about experiences and stuff, and we want to talk to Dave because Dave, from the time that he met and eventually married Deb, that, you know, his own abilities and what he has learned and seen has grown exponentially, and we want to talk about that and kind of delve into that a little bit. And then Wednesday we're doing one question readings with Deb, and that's, you know, that's always amazing, and you'll want to check that out and enjoy and take part, because if you have a question about money, relationship, that sort of thing, just go ahead and join us. And Deb will tell you, and she channels as well. She channels pets. You want to check it out. We are finishing up our conversation. We're talking about the most recent UAP congressional hearings. We have with us tonight author Michael J Worden. And, you know, Michael, I was thinking about this during the break. And I don't know if you've ever had any direct experience with aliens or anything. I have. I believe I have. And I don't even want to say I believe. I'm just going to own it. I have. And the question was that we talked about before going to break is the idea of how it affects you personally. And one of the things I thought about to myself, it kind of ostracizes you a little bit, because I think you don't, because I just did it. I didn't own it. I was like, well, I believe this is what happened to me. I know this is what happened to me. You have this moment of being like, am I crazy? Did I really have these moments? Did this really happen? Or am I misinterpreting everything that I connect with that? What do you think about that? Have you had direct experience?
So I haven't, that I can confirm and say. I've had a couple of odd experiences that I don't feel comfortable enough saying were alien, but that I can't fully explain, and that are a big kind of a lapse in memory and a big question mark.
Sure.
And one was fairly recent. So, you know, but I understand like what you're explaining, the feeling is, again, I hear it so many times.
Yeah.
And some people, they feel that they're ostracized by friends, family, coworkers. Sometimes it's a sort of self-ostracizing, like
Mhm.
they're themselves are like, I don't think this happened, but it didn't happen. Almost as if they can't reconcile the event, the reality of it, with the unreality of it or the perception of it. But I wanted to mention, one of the quotes I saw was really interesting, was that from the hearings was that the truth remains hidden, classified, and silenced by fear, retaliation, stigma, and confusion. And really, that probably could sum up UFOlogy since the end of the Second World War.
Yeah.
Um, I remember seeing interviews with World War II vets who had seen things and encountered things. And when they were asked, well, why'd you keep quiet? And they said, well, because the government asked us to. And that's just what we did.
Yep.
Like, it was a sense of duty. We were told not to talk about it. And by golly, we weren't going to talk about it. And then the ones that didn't necessarily want to toe the line, they're the ones where, careers are ruined. Who wanted to speak out if you were an airline pilot, a police officer, a paid fireman, anybody, a medical professional, anybody that had a substantial livelihood that you could completely lose.
Yep.
With no chance of rebuilding. How many times we've spoke to people in their 70s and 80s who had experiences, back in 1950s, 1960s, who said, I could never have told you this 40, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. I would have lost my job. I would have lost my family. I would have lost everything I owned.
Yeah.
And I think that still, that little quote there, getting back to it, that really sums it up. There still is that fear, that stigma, the retaliatory fear, the stigma that, are you crazy? Are you making this up for attention? Are you trying to write a book, a TV show? You want to be, and also the confusion, just never really knowing what the whole truth is. Again, we get this little trickle of a hearing, and I can understand why people don't watch these. When I printed up some of the quotes today, I accidentally printed the whole news page. So I got like 20 pages of stupid internet. But I'm looking at one of the pictures, and it's all the people like on the panel. They're all sitting there in their suits. It's questions, it's answers. It's not exciting to watch. It's not like Will Smith dragging the alien in Independence Day and throwing him on the ground. That's what I want to. That's what I want to see at one of these hearings. I want to see someone walk in, burst the door open, and drop an alien in front of everybody and say, "There we go."
Or at the very least, that image I created of the alien wearing a suit. Sit at the microphone. At least give us that, right?
Yeah. So at least have him sit down and introduce himself and say, "Hey, I'm from such and such. How you guys doing? We've been here a while.
We've been here for a while. I'm happy to finally meet some of you. Let's do some lunch or whatever." You bring up a really good point, because how much has perception changed over the years? Because you're right, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, people were not open to the idea, I don't think, of the fact that aliens could be amongst us or easily land around us or whatever else. I like to think that we're much more open to it now, but maybe we're not. And there is still that stigma that's attached to it that people have to be careful. I do a nightly radio show. You do a weekly podcast. This is our lives. We have no problem really talking about it, but to other people, there are a lot of there are a lot of consequences that could be happening because of if they talk about what they experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's gotten better. I think it's much more acceptable today for anybody, especially professionals who traditionally would have a lot to lose, to come out and say, listen, I had this experience.
Yeah.
I saw this happened to me. Whereas, 30 years ago, it would have been completely silenced. And being in law enforcement, I've had the opportunity over the decades to run into so many other police officers, judges, attorneys, people you would never expect who, because they know what I do, would pull me aside, and say, "Hey, I got to tell you about something." I'd be at the county court in the middle of a trial, and some lawyer would come up to me in the hallway and say, "Hey, you're Mike Worden, right? Yeah, how you doing?" He goes, "I got to talk to you about this." It's next thing you know, I'm spending 20 minutes talking to a lawyer I just met about ghosts, UFOs, and they're completely opening up. And
Yeah.
you could tell that for the first time, they're telling somebody who they know is believing them.
Yep. Absolutely.
Where, 10 minutes later, the guy might grill me on the stand about my recollection of an event. But for that 10 minutes, this guy is confiding, like, "Hey, I trust you enough to tell you about this experience." So I've actually been very blessed, I think, to be in the position I'm in and to meet the people I've met. I've just met some amazing witnesses and people that's having encounters, positive and negative.
hmm So at the opening of the hearings on September 9th, Representative Anna Paulina Luna says the American people are not fragile. They do not need to be shielded like children from reality. Do you think we're there when it comes to UAP?
Well, I was going to say they still have safe spaces on campuses and cry rooms, so I'm not sure about that. Sorry.
I'm in my cry room right now as it happens.
Well,
but,
that's what my pillow's for. But I think it's a tough one to look at, because the government to acknowledge that, for the government to come out and say once and for all, "Listen, this is the truth right here. This is what we have. This is how it happened. This is the timeline. Here's the evidence. Here's the photographs. Here's the video." It would change the world in ways I don't think we could comprehend. It would change people's perception of religion, reality. Um, and I'm not sure a lot of people are prepared for that. I'd like to say I am. I'm sure you would think you are, but then I wonder what would I really be like if, it's all easy to say when we're talking on the radio or when we're talking amongst friends and colleagues, but if the reality suddenly hits you in the face and you realize, wait a minute, this is really the truth. Like,
what's going to happen to us?
right.
Yeah. So with that, I want to kind of switch gears for those who love to listen about aliens, UFOs, all that good stuff. Michael does a podcast with author Linda Zimmerman, and it's called UFO Headquarters. We have about 3 minutes left. Can you tell us a little bit about this podcast, please?
Yeah, so you can catch it anywhere that they want to listen to a podcast, or favorite platform. It's UFO Headquarters, UFO HQ. And, it started out initially focused on the Hudson Valley here, where Linda and I are based, but quickly branched out as we realized how the Hudson Valley, where we are, has been an epicenter of UFO activity.
Yes, it has.
And it almost more so, I think, than other parts of the country and the world. And the more research we do, we find, going back into the old newspapers, the stories people have told, the encounters. I mean, the Hudson Valley wave of the 1980s is extraordinary. For anybody that doesn't know about it, look up Linda Zimmerman, grab one of her Hudson Valley UFO books, and be prepared to have your worldview changed on that alone. And I think being in the Hudson Valley helps, because we're in a very old part of the state, an old part of the country. There's a lot of paranormal lore, legends, stories. People seem to be a little bit more open to the paranormal in this area.
Yeah. It is a hotbed. And there's the people talk about, is this a real thing, the Hudson Valley Triangle?
They say, I don't know how accurate.
Sure.
But the whole Hudson Valley is just a hotbed, and the Hudson Valley is broadly defined. I mean, so it depends on who you talk to, but I'm kind of at the edge of what I consider the Hudson Valley, and even we have our activity out here with the ghosts, with unexplained events, things in the sky, what people see and hear. cryptids. And, I mean, we could talk about this for days. You and I could go off on tangents.
We sure could.
And I think they're always, and you know what? They're always interconnected.
Yes.
So I always find where you have hotbed of activity of ghosts, there seems to be UFO activity. There seems to be cryptid activity. I'm a very big John Keel fan and look at the big picture as really being all related to the same phenomena. Something else is at the core. We're just seeing different little pieces of it.
I agree. You and I are on the same page 100%. And folks, you like Michael said, you can get to the podcast really anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Once again, it's called UFO Headquarters with author Linda Zimmerman and, of course, our guest, Michael J. Worden. I also want to point out before we head out, please go to michaeljwarden.com. There you can see where you can follow him in all sorts of social media platforms and read about his books and everything else. I am so happy that, I mean, we haven't had you on for a while, but I'm so happy to have you with us. And it's nice that we can catch up every once in a while and just kind of talk about this stuff. It's fun, isn't it?
It is. When I see your name pop up as a text message, I always know it's good. I'm like, this is going to be good. I got to open it right away.
Your eyes aren't rolling. Is that what you're saying? Is just like, oh my
not
God,
yet. They're not yet.
Folks, Michael J. Worden, thank you very much for joining us today, Michael. It's always good.
Thank you.
Tomorrow we have Dave Woodruff, and make sure you tune in for that. Everyone, have a fantastic night, and we'll see you tomorrow.